Oh, Lauren, I'm sorry.
I'd like to request a motion and a second to call to order the May 14, 2015 meeting of the Sunny May Mortgage Insurance Committee. The motion and second recorded will be used for all action items before the committee unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any committee member wishes to record his or her vote differently.
So moved.
And a second? Second. The minutes of the meeting of the Mortgage Insurance Committee held on April 9, 2015 shall be deemed approved, absent corrections from the directors. And
The meeting will move to the Mortgage Insurance Committee program action items. Item
that's
2,
you.
resolution.
So
And I think we're
There's the chair.
morning.
Mhm.
Morning.
We just moved the minutes, so we're to the first action item.
So the first item on the agenda is a $15,990,000 New York State Housing Finance Agency loan for the construction of 171 low-income studio units. And of the 171, 90 will be supportive housing units for clients of the New York State Office of Mental Health. And OMH will execute a 30-year contract to pay $726,000 per annum in debt service directly to HFA. The development entity is Common Ground, which is an experienced and highly regarded developer of affordable housing, and this will be the third loan that we have insured for entities controlled by Common Ground. The insured loan amount is $93,500 per unit, which equals only 26% of the project's total development cost of $358,000 per unit. And the project will break even with an 11% pro forma vacancy and collection loss, or an 8% increase in operating expenses. And there is a project-based Section 8 HAP contract covering 85 of the 90 OMH units.
Questions? Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Item 3, resolution recommending approval of 100% mortgage insurance on a $12,910,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for the St. Augustine Apartments, 1180 Fulton Avenue, Bronx County.
This comprises the construction of 112 low-income units, of which 35 will be set aside for OMH clients. And as with the previous loan, OMH will execute a 30-year contract to pay $597,000 per annum in debt service directly to HFA. The development entity is a subsidiary of the Archdiocese of New York. The insured loan amount is $115,000 per unit, which equals 26% of the project's total development cost of $447,000 per unit. This is an expensive project, but it has nice big units. It has 2 and 3 bedroom units. The project would break even with a 7% increase in operating expenses or a 10% pro forma vacancy rate.
Any questions?
The resolution before the committee is recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for St. Augustine Apartments, 1180 Fulton Avenue, Bronx County.
Okay, go ahead.
Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance of a $6,485,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan to DePaul Trolley Station Apartments, 2464 County Road, 28, Canandaigua, Ontario County.
This project comprises construction of 48 low-income units, of which 26 will be reserved for New York State OMH clients. And in this case, OMH will pay 100% of the debt service on the on the mortgage loan directly to HFA. The development entity is DePaul, which is a very experienced operator of supportive housing, principally in the Rochester area. And this will be the 7th loan that we have insured for entities controlled by DePaul. But our total exposure, inclusive of this loan, is only $40 million. The loan amount is $135,000 per unit, which equals 44% of the project's total development cost.
And the resolution before the committee is approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for DePaul Trolley Station Apartments, 2464 County Road 28, Canandaigua, Ontario County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 5, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on the $2,790,000 HFA permanent first mortgage loan for Lake Ravine Apartments, 468-614 Lake Avenue, Rochester, Monroe County.
This project comprises the mod rehab of 111 low-income units. There is a project-based Section 8 HAP contract covering all of the units. The development entity is controlled by the DeMarco Group, which is an experienced and successful developer of both affordable and market-rate housing upstate. The insured loan amount is $25,000 per unit, which equals only 21% of the project's total development cost of $117,000 per unit. So this is an efficient project. The project will break even with a 10% pro forma vacancy and collection loss, or a 7% increase in operating expenses.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee for approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Lake Ravine Apartments, 468 to 614 Lake Avenue, Rochester, Monroe County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 6, resolution recommending approval of 50% mortgage insurance on a $34,920,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan to Tremont Renaissance Apartments, 4215 Park Avenue, Bronx County.
This project comprises the development of 256 low and mod income units. 126 of the units will be restricted to tenants with incomes up to 60% of the AMI, and 126 units will be restricted to tenants with incomes up to 130% of AMI. However, the rent levels will be set at much more affordable unit levels at 57, 80, and 90% of AMI. And the project has a good mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom apartments, and large apartments. The 2 bedrooms are 900 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are 1,160 square feet. The development entity Mastermind is a diversified real estate company that was founded in 1967. This will be the 5th loan that HDC has made to them, although it's the first one that we will insure. And the insured loan amount is $136,000 per unit, which equals 30% of the project's total development cost of $452,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a 15% pro forma vacancy loss, or a 23% increase in operating expenses, or with 50% of the commercial space vacant. And there's a fairly, about 20% of the income is commercial income in this case. But I think because of the location, I don't think there'll be any difficulty in leasing the commercial space.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Tremont Renaissance Apartments, 4215 Park Avenue, Bronx County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 7, resolution recommending approval of 50% mortgage insurance on a $30,920,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan for Lindsay Park, 30 Montrose Avenue, 2554 and 91 Borum Street, 31 Leonard Street, 67 Manhattan Avenue, 29 Moore Street, 202 Union Avenue, Brooklyn, Kings County.
This is a neat project. This comprises mod rehab of 2,708 affordable cooperative units. All of the units are restricted to tenants, prospective purchasers with incomes up to 125% of the AMI. However, common charges are set between 51 and 74% of the AMI. And the prices for the apartments are very low. There's a substantial waiting list for these units. It's in East Williamsburg, Bushwick section of Brooklyn. The insured loan amount is only $11,400 per unit, which equals 21% of the project's total development cost of $55,000 per unit. And because this is a cooperative, we underwrite it with 1.10 debt service coverage, because we don't want to force the insured mortgagee to in turn force the co-op to raise the maintenance above a break-even level. And the project will receive J51 benefits for the rehab. So of the $31 million mortgage, $28,370,000 will be paid by the NOI, and then there's a smaller $2,550,000 mortgage that will be paid by the tax savings from the J51 benefits.
Any questions?
The resolution before the committee is recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Lindsay Park, 30 Montrose Avenue, 2554 and 91 Borum Street, 31 Leonard Street, 67 Manhattan Avenue, 29 Moore Street, 202 Union Avenue, Brooklyn, Kings County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Item 8, resolution recommending approval of 50% mortgage insurance on an $18,890,000 HDC permanent first mortgage loan for PRC Andrews Avenue, 955 East 163rd Street, 970 Kelly Street, and 1710 to 1730 Andrews Avenue, Bronx County.
This project comprises the substantial rehab of 248 units. All of the units will be regulated by HDC through a regulatory agreement, and in addition, there will be a project-based Section 8 HAP contract covering all of the units. This is it's an HPD PLP in addition to the insured first mortgage. There is a $1.8 million HPD Article 8 loan. There's $15.5 million in low-income housing tax credits, and the project will receive an Article 11 shelter rent tax abatement. The development entity, PRC, is an experienced developer of affordable housing. It's been in business since 1971 and has developed over 5,000 units. This will be the fourth loan that we've insured for entities controlled by PRC. Our total exposure is $91 million, so I think we probably have room for one or two more big loans to PRC entities, and then I think probably that's the maximum exposure that we would want to have. The insured loan amount is $76,000 per unit, which equals 40% of the project's total development cost of $191,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a 9% increase in pro forma operating expenses or an 11% vacancy rate.
Questions?
And the resolution before the committee is recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for PRC Andrews Avenue, 955 East 163rd Street, 970 Kelly Street, and 1710 to 1730 Andrews Avenue, Bronx County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Item 9, resolution recommending approval of 100% mortgage insurance on a $7,780,000 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for 239 and 247 West 145th Street, 210 to 216 West 140th Street, 60 St. Nicholas Avenue, Manhattan, New York County.
This project comprises the substantial rehab of 211 units, of which 113 will be reserved for tenants with incomes up to 60% of the AMI. 62 units will be reserved for tenants with incomes up to 80% of the AMI, and 32 units will be reserved for tenants with incomes up to 100% of the AMI. However, the rent levels will be set appreciably lower at 47 or 50% of the AMI. The project, in addition to the insured first mortgage, will receive $4.2 million in HPD subsidy loan and the assumption of a $9.5 million HPD subsidy loan. And the project will receive Article 11 New York City real estate tax abatements. The development entity is controlled by Exact Capital, which has developed over 6,000 units, and Harlem Equities, a wholly owned subsidiary of Harlem Congregations for Community Improvement, which since its inception in 1986 has assisted in the development of more than 2,000 units of affordable housing. And this will be the fourth loan we've insured for entities controlled by either Exact or HCCI, with our total exposure at $43 million. The insured loan amount is $37,000 per unit, which equals 34% of the project's total development cost of $107,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a 10% pro forma vacancy loss, or a 7% increase in operating expenses, or with 100% of the commercial space vacant.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is recommending approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 239 and 247 West 145th Street, 210 to 216 West 140th Street, 60 St. Nicholas Avenue, Manhattan, New York County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 10, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $5,610,000 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for 261 West 116th Street, 201 West 144th Street, 234 Bradhurst Avenue, 377 Edgecombe Avenue, Manhattan, New York County, and 270 Rochester Avenue, Brooklyn, Kings County.
This project comprises the mod rehab of 93 units, and all of the units will be affordable to households with incomes at or below 80% of the AMI, and rents will be regulated by HPD through a regulatory agreement. In addition to the insured first mortgage, there's $7 million HPD second mortgage, and the project will receive Article 11 and J51 tax exemptions. The project contains a mix of large apartments. Of the 92 apartments, 43 are three-bedroom apartments and 13 are four-bedroom apartments. The development entity Catch is a consortium of 501c3s dedicated to the provision of community services and the development of affordable housing. And this will be the third loan we've insured for entities controlled by Catch, but our total exposure, including this loan, is only $11 million. The insured loan amount is $60,000 per unit, which equals 39% of the project's total development cost of $156,500 per unit. So this is an efficient project, and it would break even with an 11% pro forma vacancy rate, or a 9% increase in operating expenses. And it would also break even with 40% of the ground floor commercial space vacant.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is approving mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 261 West 116th Street, 201 West 144th Street, 234 Bradhurst Avenue, 377 Edgecombe Avenue, Manhattan, New York County, and 270 Rochester Avenue, Brooklyn, Kings County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 11, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $2,075,000 CPC permanent first mortgage loan for Excelsior 2 Apartments, 120 to 126 West 169th Street, Bronx County.
This project involves the construction of 60 very low-income units. There's a Section 8 HAP contract covering 8 of the units. 8 of the units will be affordable at 38% of the AMI, 19 will be affordable at 40% of the AMI, and 24 units will be affordable at 58% of the AMI. There'll be an HPD regulatory agreement, and there'll be a HUD, and HUD will regulate the rents on the 8 Section 8 units. This is a heavily subsidized project. In addition to the insured $2 million first, there's a $3 million HPD second mortgage and $13.6 million in federal low-income housing tax credits, and a 30-year 420C New York City real estate tax abatement. The development entity, the Highbridge Community Housing Development Fund Corporation, is a not-for-profit 501c3 that has been in business since 1984 and has developed, operated, and managed over 2,500 mod and low-income units. The insured loan amount is only $34,500 per unit, which equals 11% of the project's total development cost of $313,000 per unit. And the project would break even with a 10% pro forma vacancy loss or a 7% increase in operating expenses.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is for approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Excelsior 2 Apartments, 120 to 126 West 169th Street, Bronx, Bronx County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Item 12.
This item has been withdrawn.
Item 13, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $4.2 million CPC permanent first mortgage loan for Jackson Crossing, 71 and 75 Jackson Street, Fishkill, Dutchess County.
This project comprises construction of 26 units in Fishkill and Dutchess County. Of the 26, 3 units, or 10%, will be restricted to households earning up to 80% of the Dutchess County AMI. And of the 3 income-restricted units, 1 will be a 3-bedroom unit. The development entity is controlled by individuals who are experienced in real estate development, and this will be the 3rd loan that we have insured for entities controlled by the same borrowers. But our total exposure inclusive of this loan equals only $13 million. The insured loan amount is $161,500 per unit, which equals 78% of the project's total development cost of $206,000 per unit. So this is an efficient project. And there is $1.2 million in equity, equal to 22% of the project's total development cost. And the project would break even with a 14% pro forma vacancy rate or a 24% increase in operating expenses.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is for approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for Jackson Crossing, 71 and 75 Jackson Street, Fishkill, Dutchess County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion is carried.
Item 14, resolution approving 100% mortgage insurance on a $5,173,543 Citibank North America permanent first mortgage loan for 2264 to 2274 Lawrence Place North, Bronx.
This project comprises the construction of 66 low-income units, of which 50 will be reserved for formerly homeless individuals living with HIV or AIDS. It's a very heavily subsidized project. In addition to the insured first, there is an $8.7 million HPD supportive housing loan, a $1 million Citibank subordinate loan, and $11 million in federal low-income housing tax credits. And the project will receive a 420C New York City real estate tax abatement. The development entity Praxis is the largest provider of housing to formerly homeless people living with HIV or AIDS. And the project will be self-managed by Praxis, which currently operates 5 residences. The loan amount is $78,000 per unit, which equals 19% of the project's total development cost of $414,000 per unit. The project would break even with an 11% pro forma vacancy rate or a 16% increase in operating expenses.
Questions?
The resolution before the committee is for approval of mortgage insurance and a commitment for the provision thereof for 2264 to 2274 Loring Place North, Bronx, Bronx County. Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried.
Are there any information items?
Yes, in April, the mortgage recording surtax was $14,929,000. This compares with April of last year when it was $12,285,000, the preceding April when it was $10,400,000, and April of 2012 when it was $7,661,000. So we're on a fairly steep trajectory. Good for the mortgage insurance fund and good indicator of economic activity.
Further business, I guess, motion to adjourn.
Assuming the first and second previously entered, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried and the meeting is adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.